Dismissed by the real estate agent, single dad says, "I'll buy it cash, the house costs $8 million." The first thing Mark noticed was the silence after he said his name. It wasn't the calm, polite silence of someone listening. It was the awkward, dismissive kind, the kind that weighed heavy and told you everything before a single word was spoken. The real estate agent's smile froze for half a second too long, her eyes flicking from Mark's worn jacket to the scuffed sneakers of his 8-year-old daughter standing beside him. Then came the question that hung in the air like a quiet insult. "Are you sure you're in the right place?" The house behind her rose like something out of a dream. White stone walls glowed in the late afternoon sun, glass balconies catching the light, a long curved driveway leading up to a massive wooden door. The listing price sat boldly on the brochure in her hand, $8 million. Mark swallowed, not because of the number, but because he'd seen this look before. The look that said he didn't belong here. Mark tightened his grip on Lily's small hand. She looked up at him, eyes wide with curiosity and trust. She didn't see what the agent saw. She didn't see a tired single dad with faint lines under his eyes and calloused hands. She saw her hero. "I'm sure," Mark said calmly. "We have an appointment." The agent let out a polite laugh that didn't reach her eyes. "Of course. Well, just so you know, this property is quite exclusive. Many people come just to look." Mark nodded. "That's fine. I'm here to buy." Something about the way he said it made Lily squeeze his hand a little tighter. The agent hesitated, then stepped aside, clearly unconvinced. As she led them toward the door, Mark's mind drifted back to the long road that had brought him here, to this exact moment where doubt sat thick in the air and judgment whispered loudly without saying a word. Mark hadn't always imagined his life this way. 10 years earlier, he'd been just another guy with a stable job, a modest home, and a wife who laughed easily and dreamed big. Emma. Everything changed the night she didn't come home. A drunk driver. One phone call. One moment that split his life clean in two. After the funeral, Mark learned quickly that grief didn't pause bills or responsibilities. Lily was barely 2 then. She cried at night, reaching for a mother who would never walk through the door again. Mark cried too, but quietly, in the shower, where no one could hear him fall apart. He worked 3 jobs at one point. Days blurred into nights. He learned how to braid hair from YouTube videos and how to pack lunches shaped like smiling faces just to make Lily laugh. He missed birthdays with friends, skipped vacations, and forgot what rest felt like. But somewhere in the exhaustion, something else grew: determination. Mark had always been good with numbers. After Emma passed, he poured himself into learning everything he could about investing. Late nights turned into early mornings studying markets, risks, patterns. He failed more times than he succeeded at first. Lost money he couldn't afford to lose. But he learned. Slowly, painfully, relentlessly. Years passed. Lily grew taller. Mark grew quieter. Success didn't come with fireworks. It came with discipline, with patience, with choosing long-term security over short-term comfort. The agent opened the massive door and gestured them inside. The house smelled faintly of polished wood and fresh paint. Sunlight spilled across marble floors. Lily gasped softly. "Daddy, it's huge," she whispered. Mark smiled. "Yeah, it is." The agent launched into her practiced script, pointing out imported fixtures, designer finishes, panoramic views. Her tone was professional, but distant, as if she were giving a tour to someone she already knew wouldn't buy. Mark listened, but his focus drifted to Lily as she wandered a few steps ahead, imagining where her books might go, where her desk might sit. He'd promised her once, on a night when money was tight and hope felt thinner than ever, that one day they'd have a home where she could run without worrying about neighbors complaining, where she could plant a garden, where memories wouldn't feel borrowed. They moved from room to room. The agent's glances at her watch grew more frequent. Finally, she stopped in the grand living room, sunlight pouring in through floor-to-ceiling windows. "So," she said carefully, "do you have any questions?" Mark nodded. "Yes. What's the closing timeline if I make an offer today?" She blinked. "An offer?" "Yes." Her smile returned, tighter this time. "Well, before we discuss that, may I ask about your financing?" Mark felt it again, that familiar tightening in his chest. Lily looked between them, sensing the shift. "I won't need financing," Mark said. The agent raised an eyebrow. You won't. I'll buy it cash. The room went very quiet. For a second, the agent seemed unsure whether to laugh or apologize. She chose neither. Instead, she let out a small, polite chuckle. Mr. Mark, she repeated slowly, this property is $8 million. I know. She glanced at Lily, then back at Mark. Perhaps it would be better if we looked at some other listings more suitable for your situation. Mark didn't raise his voice. He didn't argue. He simply reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his phone. I'd like to proceed, he said. If you're unable to assist, that's fine. I can contact the listing broker directly. Something in his tone shifted. Not anger, but certainty. The kind that comes from knowing exactly where you stand. The agent swallowed. There's no need for that. I just want to make sure we're being realistic. Mark looked around the room, then down at Lily. Realistic is knowing what you can afford, he said softly. And what you can't. He turned back to the agent. I can afford this. She studied him for a long moment, as if trying to reconcile the man in front of her with the numbers attached to the house. Finally, she nodded. Very well. Let's sit down. They moved to the dining area. Papers were laid out. Questions were asked. Mark answered them calmly, confidently. When he provided proof of funds, the agent's hands trembled just slightly as she reviewed the documents. This is all liquid, she said quietly. Yes. The shift was immediate. Her posture straightened. Her tone warmed. The dismissiveness melted into something closer to awe. I apologize if I seemed skeptical earlier, she said. Mark didn't respond right away. He looked at Lily, who was swinging her legs under the chair, oblivious to the tension that had just cracked the room open. We're used to it, he said finally. The deal moved fast after that. Lawyers, signatures, confirmations. By the end of the week, the house was his. On moving day, Mark stood in the empty living room, boxes stacked high, sunlight painting the walls gold. Lily ran from room to room, laughter echoing through spaces that would soon be filled with their life. Daddy, she shouted, this one can be my reading room. He laughed, a sound that felt lighter than it had in years. That evening, as they sat on the floor eating pizza because the table hadn't arrived yet, Lily leaned against him. Daddy, yeah, kiddo, why did that lady think we couldn't buy the house? Mark paused, choosing his words carefully. Sometimes people make decisions about others without really knowing them. Lily frowned. That's silly. He smiled. Yeah, it is. Weeks later, the agent sent a handwritten note. It was an apology. A sincere one. She thanked him for teaching her a lesson she wouldn't forget. Mark folded the note and placed it in a drawer, not out of resentment, but closure. Life in the new house wasn't perfect. It wasn't magically easier. Mark still worked hard. Lily still had bad days. But the walls echoed with safety, not fear. With possibility, not doubt. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in soft oranges and pinks, Mark stood on the balcony watching Lily play in the yard below. He thought about all the times he'd been underestimated, overlooked, dismissed, and how none of it had stopped him. Because real worth isn't always loud. Real strength doesn't always announce itself. And success doesn't always look the way people expect it to. The moral is simple but powerful. Never judge someone by appearances or assumptions. You never know the struggles they've survived, the sacrifices they've made, or the quiet strength they carry. And sometimes, the person you dismiss today is the one who proves tomorrow that belief in yourself is the richest currency of all.